C is for conclusion. Also cookie. Your conclusion is the last part of your lab report, and it is going to get you probably half or right around that number of the points on the lab report. This is the big one. So it's going to be written in claim evidence reasoning format, and I want to show you a little bit about that. So your claim should always be just a single sentence. It should not be flowery. There should be no fluff there. It should just simply be your answer based on your evidence, the data that you collected, to the purpose, the question that we started with. So if we go way back up to the top here, our purpose was, what is the relationship between the amount of salt in the ice and the lowest temperature of the mixture? And we're going to answer that. Adding more salt to the ice lowers the temperature of the mixture, but only until the salt concentration reaches about 20% and the temperature is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So in one sentence, you just directly answer that question. Then you have to do your best to support that, to prove it, or something like prove it, by using evidence and reasoning. So your evidence section should not have anything about why. It should be just you pointing to different parts of your data. So in my evidence section here, I said, look at the graph. It has a negative slope. It flattens out. Look at the data table. Every time we added 5 grams, we can see that the temperature went down a little less than the previous one. You can see that we had observation that there was solid salt left in the container when we got to the end. So just don't tell me why I'm looking at those things. Just point them out. I know that you have the graph in there, but I want you to point to the graph verbally. I want you to say, hey, look at this graph, or look at this part of the graph. Look at this table. See this interesting pattern in the table. Don't get into why I'm looking at it. Just point my eye to the important evidence that you collected during the lab, okay? And then reasoning. The reasoning is where now you're going to tell me why I looked at the graph and what does the slope of the graph mean, or the intercept of the graph. Or why does the table have this pattern in it? What do you think about that? Why is that important? So you can see that my reasoning here refers back to the evidence that I cited and tells me why those things are important to understand that salt makes the temperature go down, but that it stops when we get to around 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. At the end here, I have a chance for you to think about the lab and think about what about the procedure or the setup of the lab maybe limited how well you could do it, what might you improve in the future, or other things that make you that you think about when you're doing this lab, other investigations that might be related, like a tangent that we could go off on that might be interesting related to this lab. So I picked a couple of things here. It would be interesting to do this lab with increments of fewer than 5 grams of salt, so you get more data points and you can get a much more descriptive curve on your graph. And also, I wonder what would happen if we use ground ice or snow to do this, if we might get a lower temperature because they would be able to mix better. Be interesting to try it out. So those are the types of answers that I'm looking for to this question at the end of every conclusion.